Welcome back to the channel in Season 5 of the VDL. Today, I'm bringing you the power rankings for the Shaymin division. Before we get into it though, please remember that this is my opinion, so please do not take it personally on how your team is ranked. I'm essentially looking at these teams in a vacuum since I'm not judging a team based on how skilled the coach is. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about your team at all. Finally, if you enjoy, please drop a like and consider subscribing as this video took a ton of effort to make in such a short amount of time. Let's get started with our first pick belonging to Niverless. A balanced team featuring the best spike setter in the game, Hisui and Samurott is leading us off. This team has some good offensive options to take advantage of these spikes in Latios, Mega Manectric, and Great Tusk. The speed tiers on this team could be flushed out a bit more as there's quite a gap between Manectric and Latios, then staggers through the 80s and 90s. This team is also quite weak to ground and to a lesser extent Ice and Ghost, which I think picking up a bulky water type could help with. This team definitely just needs a few changes. Rocking another balanced team, we have Hina joining the VDL. Having a good Fairy Dragon Steel Core in Iron Valiant, Latias, and Celesteela had this team starting off quite strong. It keeps going with more defensive pieces in Rotom Wash and Clodsire, the latter of which can set all types of hazards for this team. I do think the speed tiers need some work with quite a few repeating stats and big gaps. Team could use a few changes to get those speed tiers fixed. Finding a common issue with these Shaymin teams and their speed tiers, Kyle probably has the worst out of all the teams I've looked at thus far. He arguably has the best Pokemon in Draft, Dragapult, but from there, his speed drops to 105 in Palmont and then 78 in Blastoise. This team is also quite ground weak, with only one immunity in Earthworm's Earth Eater, which doesn't help this team when it has so many ground weak Pokemon like Heatran. This team has zero synergy amongst its members and needs to be taken back to the drawing board. Luckily, there's no Electivire to drag this team down even further, though. With the fourth pick, we have Tubelooper, who drafted a Rain team with no Swift Swim user. The speed tiers on this team aren't bad, but it's just quite odd to not see something like Mega Swampert, Barraskewda, or even Floatzel on the roster. This squad would definitely benefit from a dark or normal type to help cover Spectreer's ghost weakness alongside grabbing a Swift Swim user like mentioned. Those few changes would make this team quite a threatening Rain team. Coming in with a hybrid Rain and Electric Terrain team, AMC Stubbs makes his debut season in the VDL. On one hand, he has Beartick and Urshifu Rapid to abuse Politoed's Rain, as well as Tapu Koko, which both lets it unleash mighty, fully accurate thunders and set up terrain for Iron Tread's Quark Drive. Unfortunately, this team has very little bulk, with only Umbreon as an option, who isn't the most reliable since it can easily get shut down by Taunt. Arcanine also feels like an odd addition for a Rain team, and just adds to the fighting and ground weakness this team already has. This team is definitely going in the right direction, but could use some work. Coming back to the VDL after taking last season off, we have Wolf. This team has some great hazard setters in Cleavor and Bramblegast, the latter of which can block Rapid Spin since it's a ghost type. This team does lack a true wall breaker, with only Nidoking and Cleavor being the only true powerhouses. Everything else needs to set up to be able to be threatening to the opposition. On top of that, the only bulk on this team is Slowking, which isn't a bad option, but it will get worn down quite quickly with nothing to support it. This team overall tries to focus on power, but lacks synergy as a result. They call me Gage coming back for a second season with a powerful balance team starring Palafin, Meowscarada, and Aegislash. To support those offensive threats, they have Colossal and Florges, the former being a great hazard setter and remover, and the latter passing huge wishes to the team. There's also a bit of ground and fighting weakness, but there is an attempt to patch both of those with the Terra options on this team, the Terra Ghost on Colossal also making it a second spin blocker to Aegislash. This is a great team with a lot of potential, and I can't wait to see what it does. At the halfway point is Griggsy, drafting some powerhouses in Landorus T, Kyurem, and Mega Scizor. He continued by drafting some defensive powerhouses in Screamtail, Tangrowth, and Tentacruel. This is definitely the best team I've looked at so far. I think it's a great team, but if I could recommend one change, it would be grabbing a second bulky water type, maybe one with access to spikes to further support these offensive monsters. Next up, we have a Trick Room team piloted by Kesternino with some slow demons in Mega Mawile, King Gambit, and Ursaluna Blood Moon, and Slowbro and Hatterini to set it up. These are all very strong options, but in singles, Trick Room has a lot to be desired due to the lack of turns you get to take advantage of. It takes one turn to set up and one turn to switch out, only allowing 3 turns for whatever threat to put in work against the opponent. Not to mention Trick Room can be easily shut down by things like Taunt or opponents running items like Iron Ball or Room Service. For what the team is, it's not bad, but when Trick Room is the only option, it could use some work. Next up is Asylum, and to be honest, from the jump, this team lacks synergy. We see it starting off with a Fairy Dragon Steel Core in Dracovish, Melmetal, and Mega Diancie, who don't provide much to each other outside of their typings. Speed is also a bit slow, relying on webs set by Galvantula. This can be an issue when the team has a lack of hazard control with just Crobat and Donphan. This team covers the basics of a draft team with typing cores, but the actual Pokemon themselves don't pair very well together. Rocking a team under grassy terrain, we have Fortree Darkscale returning for their second season. Rillaboom, Mega Diancie, and Kartana all pair very nicely, with Petrunt also there to take advantage. Araquanid is there to set up webs to fix this team's average speed, and even though the rapid spin option isn't the best in Komala, Mega Diancie is able to keep hazards off the field with its magic bounce. As long as Fort can keep rocks off of their side of the field and keep webs on the other, this is going to be a very scary team for the Shaymin coaches to deal with. Looking at a team that didn't put all of their points into Trick Room, we have Cubin. We see a mix of slow threats in Stakataka, Alolan Executor, and Enamorous Therian, and fast wall breakers in Mega Lopunny, Victini, and Cinderace. Unfortunately, this team just has a lot of issues. First, there is no hazard removal besides from Court Change on Cinderace, which doesn't get rid of the hazards entirely. The lack of a bulky water type also gives this team issues, as that is one of the most important Pokemon on a team. This team definitely needs some work, probably dropping the Trick Room side to focus on the team's defense. Next up is Alikalos coming in with a combo sand and grassy terrain team. This is a combo we've seen quite a few times this season so far already, and it works out quite well, as Pokemon like Mega T-Tar and Dracozolt take less damage from earthquakes. Sneasler gives this team some much needed speed, along with its fellow Unburdened Sweeper and Drifblim. There are a lot of good defog options, but could definitely use a Rapid Spinner to keep your own rocks up. Overall, this is a great team. Nearing the end of the Shaymin draft, we have Luminous, who started off with a powerful group of Pokemon in Corviknight, Zygarde 50%, Mew, and Annihilate. This team is further supported by webs from Masquerain to help with speed, but the remaining Pokemon don't quite fit. Needing webs typically means you want to have Rapid Spin, which this team does not have. Yes, Mega Absol does have Magic Bounce, but it's a very frail Pokemon that can't take hits. This team needs some work, but I can definitely see it being one of the top teams with the right changes. Next up, we have Maylene, rocking a Sun team featuring Mega Charizard Y, and if you missed my points in the Mew video, I'm going to quickly reiterate, I do not believe that Mega Charizard Y is a good Sun setter for teams. I believe that it is good in its own right to set Sun because it is a huge threat with its 159 special attack boosted by the Sun, but the problem is it cannot get into threats like Roaring Moon, Walking Wake, or Venusaur with only those 4 turns since it cannot hold a Heat Rock, and it also needs a lot of support since it can't hold heavy duty boots and it's so weak to stealth rocks. So I think overall this is a very solid Sun team, but it could just benefit from a better Sun setter in something like Ninetales or Torkoal. That one change would make this team absolutely terrifying and just one of the top teams in the entire division. Our final team is from Hunts and is quite a scary balanced team. Great hazard setters in Garchomp and Toedscruel, the former having the ability to run offense or defense, and the latter being able to remove hazards alongside Zapdos. Weavile, Blacephalon, and Lucario round out the offense on this team, while Toxapex is there to help Zapdos on defense. I think this is the best team in the Shaymin division, and I cannot wait to see it in action. Those are your teams for VDL Season 5. Let me know down in the comments which is your favorite and what your thoughts were on my rankings. I know this was a lot shorter, so please reach out if you would like me to expand on what I said in the video. Once again, if you enjoyed, drop a like and subscribe. Peace.